Great. Does the White House have any reaction to Mary Trump's book?
No response other than it's a book of falsehoods, and that's about it. I haven't spoken to the president about that, but we wish him well and a speedy recovery.
I'll talk to each other within the next day or two?
No announcements on their future conversations, but we do wish him well. Anything else?
Sorry, no, I've got a question. Sorry, why is it a good idea for the president to go to Miami on Friday? Since the fees there are so high and medical resources are already so limited?
But the president has an important message to share. We've been traveling all around the country. We'll be in New Hampshire on Saturday, and we believe we can do so safely.
But he has a fundraiser on Friday. Is that really important?
We've had several fundraisers. We've had important messages to share. We've been all around the country, and we've done so safely.
But is the White House worried about more Secret Service agents getting sick if they're traveling there?
We've traveled. We've done so safely, and we'll continue to do it.
The Mary Trump book just came out right now. You guys probably haven't seen a complete copy of it at this point, obviously, but the accusations of clinical psychologists that the president's narcissistic and lying and means himself aggrandized, but all sorts of different allegations. No response to that on his behalf?
It's ridiculous, absurd allegations that have absolute no bearing in truth. Have yet to see the book, but it is a book of falsehoods.
While President Trump has been receiving criticism for his response to the coronavirus, we're taking a closer look at one of his most trusted administration officials, the White House press secretary. Before joining the team in early April, Kayleigh McEnany would often frequent the cable networks, even CBSN, where I've interviewed her, as a surrogate for Republicans. But it is her ardent support of the president and his agenda that caught the eyes of the White House. In her latest piece for The Atlantic, Emma Green takes a deep dive into the life and career of McEnany. Specifically, she looks at how the 32-year-old Florida native got to where she is today, and why she now considers colleagues in the press her so-called enemies. Emma Green joins me now. Welcome, Emma. Great to have you with us. So from an early age, it seems that Kayleigh McEnany has held a pretty consistent view when it comes to the fusion between religion and politics. Can you help us better understand her political and religious background and allegiances, and how exactly she was able to parlay all of this into such a high-level position at the White House?
I spoke for my article with friends of Kayleigh's from high school, from college, from her early years as a producer on Governor Mike Huckabee's television show on Fox. And they all said the same thing, that from a very young age, she was extremely ardent about her faith. She spoke openly about issues like partial birth abortion and was very invested in Republican politics. She had internships during her time as a high schooler and college students, worked at the Bush White House, and now she's worked her way directly up to the top. She, in 2016, was able to take her role as a law student at Harvard and turn that into a role on CNN, which has essentially catapulted her to where she is now.
And she has been pretty consistent then throughout her life in terms of her political views and her commitment to her faith. However, she has wavered a little bit at the beginning about how she felt about then Republican candidate Trump, correct?
That's right. She has always been someone who speaks ardently for Christianity, for religious freedom, and that didn't always seem to be what then candidate Trump was representing. She expressed her skepticism of the candidate on air in the summer of 2015, but by the time the fall of 2015 and early 2016 came around, she had basically decided to become a backer. I heard from friends that one of the main reasons why she became supportive of then candidate Trump was that she felt he didn't get a fair shake in the media. And she also thought he was going to be a strong defender for conservative Christians like her who feel like they're under threat and need protection for policies, for example, like the pro-life cause.
It's interesting that you talk about this idea that Christians, as she sees it, are sort of targets of the press. Is this one of the reasons you think that she has sort of formed a worldview that is a little bit as if it's us against them, meaning us against the press? I mean, she declined to comment or be interviewed for your article, correct?
That's right. She wouldn't speak on the record for the article, and she has a lot of experience working with the press. She has colleagues and friends in green rooms throughout the country, including liberal commentators. But when it comes to her public persona and when she defends this White House, she often frames the press as the enemy of the people and specifically as the enemy of Christians. There was one exchange that she had that really struck my eye with the Reuters reporter Jeff Mason, where she essentially insinuated that the press corps didn't want people in the United States to be able to go to church because they want to see houses of worship empty, when in fact, reporters in the press corps were asking whether it was safe for Americans to return to their churches during the COVID-19 outbreak. So she's found that this is an effective strategy.
Very interesting exchange. As you point out in your article, he basically said, I'm eager to go back to church too. I attend church as well. I just don't know whether it's safe.
Right. Many in the press are themselves religious, and the kind of binary that she sets up between the White House and the press doesn't capture a lot of the reality or the nuance. So she's gone from being someone who herself works in the media to being someone who demonizes the media as a way of trying to defend President Trump and promote his cause.
Which is, I guess, one of the reasons she is really such an ideal fit for this administration. How would you say she is filling the role for President Trump from his perspective? And how does she differ from previous press secretaries he's had?
She has really picked up the line from President Trump about the fake news media. She has even gone on CNN, her old home, and called the fake news out over and over again. She said in an interview with Chris Cuomo, I don't need any prizes from the fake news media. This is a rhetoric that's exactly out of President Trump's playbook, and she does a great job of echoing that. But moreover, she is a kind of representative from the Trump administration to the white evangelical world. This is a world that she grew up in and that she spent a lot of time in, and she knows intimately the kinds of messages that white Christians care about and conservative Christians care about. So for a base of President Trump that he cares about, that he's going to need in the 2020 election, she's a really effective spokesperson to try to carry that message to that block of voters.
And would you agree that that's a block that he really needs to shore up support? Because there are often times when some of the things that he does and says do seem to stray from sort of Christian orthodoxy, and there have been some defectors from that camp.
I think that's right. We've seen examples over President Trump's presidency where he doesn't really seem to speak Christianese, you might say. For example, mistaking the title of a book in the New Testament as 2 Corinthians instead of 2 Corinthians. What Kayleigh Mcenany offers to the Trump administration is someone who's really fluent in the language of Christianity, really understands the concerns that affect Christians, and can speak as one of them to them. And this, I think, is a really important asset going into the 2020 election, because the Trump administration cannot afford to lose the support of white Christians. 81% of white evangelicals supported President Trump in 2016, and the administration is counting on these voters to bring him to a second term in the White House.
And so would you say that he's been happy with her performance thus far? Because we know it's all about pleasing just one man in the White House when you're press secretary.
I think you can make that argument, and all indications suggest that he is supportive of her. He's retweeted memes of her looking like a superwoman and taking questions from the press, or memes of her smoking something that appeared to be a joint, which sort of speaks to the president's interesting Twitter style. But when it comes down to it, she's a fierce defender of the president from the podium. She's a lawyer. She's able to give a sort of lawyerly defense of everything that he's doing. And ultimately, I think that's what the president is looking for, someone with ultimate loyalty, which she has, who's willing to go up there to the podium and be a really fierce advocate for his policies and his actions to the press.
All right. Well, Emma Green, staff writer for The Atlantic, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.